Welcome to Pashua's Moment with Pastor Charles Kiyaga.
Yes, praise the Lord, brethren. We are back again on our program, the Pashua's Moment. And as always, I'm your servant, Pastor Charles, and seated down here at your site, at your prayer site, at the mountain of God Seekers, Zion Pashua's Prayer Mountain. We are back again with our message that mobilizes to go back to the ways of seeking and following hard after God. We are studying the history of humanity, where humans began, and how they began well, and they started drifting through the generations. And whenever they drifted, it attracted a curse, it attracted suffering, it attracted retardation, it attracted so many negative things. Whenever people drifted away from the true God to worship other gods. Yesterday, we saw the black race has dragged behind, has remained underdeveloped, and we look unprivileged, not because of anything that we are inferior. Maybe we do not think, or we do not have the same brain power as the whites. That is not true. The only problem we have is the worship of things that are not God. We saw that we were descendants of Nimrod. Nimrod was the first world leader. He had an empire that stretched, almost covered the world of that time. He was a world leader, but eventually drifted people away from the worship of God, and people started worshiping him. Like the people of Babylon, when they started worshiping Nebuchadnezzar as God. So Nimrod also became so powerful and influenced people, and they started worshiping him. And people drifted away from worshiping the true God, and they started worshiping spirits, evil spirits, and worshiping humans like Nimrod. And that's what kept the black race behind. Okay? Now we see, when we go to chapter 11, okay? Now the whole earth had one language. Genesis chapter 11, verses 1. The whole earth had one language. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and there they dwelt. Then they said to one another, Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They had bricks for stones, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower, whose top is in heaven, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we are scattered abroad over the face of the earth. Now, humanity once again began to drift away from God once again. And here we see that they hatch an idea. And the idea is actually to build for themselves a city. Because the way God created us as humans, we are very industrious. By our brain power, we can do so many things. And when humans determine to do something, and they purpose, they will always achieve it. So they began and they said, let us make ourselves a tower and build it up to heaven. And we make ourselves a name, or else we get scattered on the face of the earth. Instead of saying, let us go back to God, they instead said, let us build a city, let us build a tower. We don't reach God through our industriousness. We don't build cities and then that stands in the place of God. I know many of us go to big cities, global cities, and you see great skyscrapers, and you start imagining, God must be here. How could humans make this very astonishing constructions? No, that is embedded in us. It is part of our ingenuity as human beings. We can do quite a lot. But if we use that ingeniousness to draw closer to God, we will do ourselves a much bigger favor. Instead of saying, let us turn back to God, they decided, let us build ourselves a tower that reaches heaven. We don't reach God through building buildings. God is not in buildings. Many of us convince ourselves by having great churches, great places of worship, and we tend to imagine God dwells in buildings. God doesn't dwell in buildings. No. God dwells in hearts of men. Instead of building buildings, let us build our hearts towards God. Let us not invest in building buildings. Let us build our hearts back to God. So that was the first, again, the next era humanity did, that they decided to build a tower to reach God through industriousness instead of turning their hearts back to God. And even now we see it, that men replace God with industriousness, with development, with advancement, with money. And we think because we have it, then that means God is with us. God does not dwell in buildings. God dwells in hearts. Let us turn our hearts to God instead of building buildings. God bless you.
Eyo yebadde Pursuers Moment ng'ekutuusiddwako essomero lya Pursuers Junior School erisangibwa mu Butambala ku kkubo lya Mpigi Gombe. Kati wulira enkizo eriwo singa otwala omwana wo ku Pursuers Junior School. Interviews za bwereere. Essomero liyimiridde ku musingi ogutya Katonda ate ng'omwana agonjulwa abakugu. Tutumbula ebitone eby'enjawulo mu mwana. Tulina amazzi amayonjo ku ssomero ate ng'omwana bw'asomera ne weyeebaka abanga mukungu. Endya y'abayizi nnungi byansusso anti emmere tugirimira nga ne faamu y'ente weeri ku ssomero. Tulina emmotoka ezitambuza abaana. Pursuers Junior School e Butambala tusomesa abaana okuva mu baby class okutuuka ku kibiina ekyomusanvu. Mudene boarding okumanya ebisingawo 0772 41 98 4 ne 0702 36 41 64. Pursuers Junior School Butambala, in pursuit of knowledge.